Relationships are challenging, especially when you are trying to balance work, family, and personal well-being. If you're like many of the thousands of men I've worked with, you might sometimes feel overwhelmed or uncertain about how to create a healthy, happy, and loving relationship. The good news, however, is that there are some simple and practical strategies you can use to strengthen your connection with your partner, reduce conflict, and create a happier, more loving, and fulfilling relationship. In today's episode of the Angus Secrets podcast, I'm going to share my top 5 relationship tips for men. These tips are based on over 30 years of experience working with thousands of both men and women, helping them to control their anger, master their emotions, and create calmer, happier, and more loving relationships. Hello and welcome to episode 99 of the Angus Secrets podcast. I'm your host, Alistair Hughes, and over the past 30 years, I've taught more than 15,000 men and women how to control their anger, master their emotions, and create calmer, happier, and more respectful relationships. In today's episode, I want to focus on relationships from a male perspective. Many men struggle with expressing their emotions and communicating effectively in relationships, which often leads to conflict and strain. So if you're a man looking to improve your relationship, or perhaps just seeking some guidance, then this episode is for you. Just before I dive into these 5 tips, however, if you'd like my personal help to control your anger, visit my website at angussecrets.com to book a free 30-minute anger assessment call with me. I'd be honoured to support you on your journey to controlling your anger, mastering your emotions, and creating a calmer, happier, and more loving relationship. With that said, let's dive into today's topic, my top 5 relationship tips for men. Tip 1 is to take responsibility for your actions. My first tip for men in relationships is to take responsibility for your actions. What I mean by this is that no matter what is going on in your relationship or how your partner is acting towards you, it's important to recognize that you are responsible for the way you act in your relationship. It's easy to blame your partner, for example, when things go wrong. But the truth is, you have control over your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. So rather than pointing fingers or making excuses, take ownership of your actions, no matter what is happening, and work towards being a better partner. I have a client named Andrew, for example, who often found himself in arguments with his wife and would blame her for these arguments. He would say things like, "If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have gotten so angry." Through counselling sessions with me, Andrew realised that this blame game was damaging his relationship. He began to take ownership of his actions, acknowledging when he was in the wrong and apologising for his part in any conflict. This shift not only reduced the level of conflict in his relationship, but also helped build trust and connection in his marriage. It is important to note, however, that taking responsibility doesn't mean admitting fault for everything. Instead, it means acknowledging your part in any conflict and being willing to make amends. This will create a foundation of mutual trust and accountability in your relationship. Tip 2 is to communicate and not assume. This second tip for men in relationships is simple but powerful. This is to communicate and not assume. One of the most common issues I see in couples is a lack of clear communication. Many men I work with fall into the trap of assuming they know what their partner is thinking or feeling. This can lead to misunderstandings, frustration, and unnecessary conflict. For instance, another client of mine, Mike, was convinced that his wife was always angry with him because she often seemed distant. He assumed her silence meant that she was upset with him. But when Mike finally asked her about it, he was surprised to learn that she was often feeling stressed at work and didn't want to burden him with her problems. By communicating openly with his wife instead of making assumptions, Mike was able to offer her support instead of reacting defensively. This simple change in approach transformed their relationship. Remember, you can't read your partner's mind, and they can't read yours. If something is bothering you, or if you're unsure about how your partner is feeling, simply ask them. Open, honest communication is the foundation of any strong, loving relationship. Tip 3 is to listen to understand, not to respond. My third tip for men in relationships is to listen to understand, not to respond. Many men I've worked with admit that when they're having a conversation with their partner, they're often thinking about what they're going to say next, rather than truly listening to what their partner is saying to them. This can make their partner feel unheard or undervalued, which can lead to frustration and resentment. John, for instance, used to get into frequent arguments with his wife because he would interrupt her or try to fix her problems instead of just listening. During our sessions, John learned the importance of focusing entirely on his wife's words without planning his response. He started to ask follow-up questions to show that he was really trying to understand her perspective. This shift made a huge difference in their relationship. His wife felt more connected to him, and their arguments became less frequent. If you would like to know more about active listening, I have talked about this in many past episodes of this podcast. So the next time your partner is speaking, try to really listen without thinking about your response. Focus on what they are saying, how they're feeling, and ask questions to deepen your understanding. This simple shift will have a profound impact on your relationship. Tip 4 is to make time for your partner. In today's busy world, it's easy to get caught up in work, hobbies, or other responsibilities and neglect your relationship. But one of the most important things you can do to strengthen your connection with your partner is to make time for them. Tom, another past client of mine, struggled with this. He was dedicated to his job and often worked long hours, leaving little time for his wife. Over time, Tom and his wife grew distant. While it may seem obvious, through our sessions, Tom realized that he needed to prioritize time with his wife if he wanted to save their relationship. He started to schedule regular date nights and made an effort to talk more when they were together. This simple change helped Tom and his wife reconnect, and their relationship grew stronger as a result. Remember, making time for your partner doesn't have to mean grand gestures. It can be as simple as spending quality time together, talking, or doing things you both enjoy. The key is to make your relationship a priority, even in the midst of a busy life. Tip 5 is to think, what is important long term? My fifth tip for men in relationships is to think about what is important long term. In the heat of the moment, such as in an argument, it's easy to get caught up in minor issues or disagreements. But when you take a step back and think about the bigger picture, you will realize that your relationship contributes much more to your long-term happiness than anything else in your life. I once worked with a client named David, who often found himself arguing with his wife over small, insignificant things. These arguments would escalate, leading to days of tension and silence. During our sessions, I asked David to think about what really mattered to him long term. He realized that these minor issues weren't worth the strain they were putting on his marriage. By focusing on the importance of his relationship and letting go of the small stuff, David was able to cultivate a more peaceful and loving home environment. So, when you're faced with conflict or tension, ask yourself, is this issue worth damaging my relationship over? Almost always, the answer is no. By keeping your long-term happiness in mind, you can avoid unnecessary arguments and focus on nurturing your relationship. Okay, so let's recap the 5 relationship tips I've discussed today. Tip 1 was to take responsibility for your actions. Tip 2 was to communicate, not assume. Tip 3 was to listen to understand, not to respond. Tip 4 was to make time for your partner. And tip 5 was to think what is important long term. If you apply these tips to your relationship, you will see significant improvements in your connection with your partner. Remember, like anything else, relationships take time and effort, but the rewards of a strong, loving partnership are always well worth the effort. Okay, thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, please follow this podcast, leave a rating and review on your favourite podcast app, or share it with others who may benefit from these tips. And don't forget, my website, angersecrets.com, offers a range of free resources to help you control your anger, master your emotions, and create calmer, happier, and more loving relationships, including a free training on my top 3 secrets to control your anger in any situation. You can access this training on my website at angersecrets.com/training. And finally, remember, you can't control other people, but you can control yourself. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
The Anger Secrets podcast is for general informational purposes only, and does not constitute the practice of counseling, psychotherapy, or any other professional health service. No therapeutic relationship is implied or created by this podcast. If you have mental health concerns of any type, please seek out the help of a local mental health professional.